with so much recent focus on Afghanistan and the Taliban once again, and the convenient resurgence of the geopolitical skeleton key that is ISIS, we would not be at all surprised if on the 20th anniversary of the events of the 11th of September 2001, the sociopathic puppeteers behind the false flag, inside job terrorist attack, are brazen enough to stage another major terror event. The corporate media have propagandized the public into believing that the apparent perpetrators of the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon were motivated by a disdain for US foreign policy and the oppression of Muslims in various regions of the world. What the propaganda peddlers and producers of television specials that have been broadcast for the last 20 Septembers consistently fail to acknowledge are the following details for deliberation. Having only taken out a 99-year lease on the 7 buildings that comprise the World Trade Center complex in July of 2001 for $3.2 billion, American businessman Larry Silverstein was eventually paid an insurance settlement of over $4.5 billion for the gratis demolition of the asbestos-riddled towers, profiting a cool $1.3 billion. Active thermitic material discovered in the dust following the collapse of the Twin Towers substantiates the theory that nanothermite explosives which burns at a temperature sufficient enough to cut through structural steel, unlike jet fuel, was used to bring the towers down. North American Aerospace Defense Command just so happened to be running training exercises on the 11th of September 2001, leaving no aerospace defense whatsoever in the very sector of the country in which the attacks occurred. Reporting live, the BBC claimed that 7 World Trade Center had collapsed, while it can be seen standing and intact in the background behind the correspondent, and remained so for approximately another 30 minutes. In a PBS interview, owner Larry Silverstein remarked that due to the fire department saying that they couldn't control the fire in 7WTC, he made the decision to pull it, a term associated with the demolition industry. Building 7 eventually pancaked into its own footprint, corroborating the notion that it was brought down by controlled demolition. In the run-up to the Iraq War, Oil and Services Corporation Halliburton were awarded very lucrative no-bid contracts by the US government. Vice President at the time Dick Cheney just so happens to be their former CEO, only retiring from the role with a package estimated to be worth $20 million, to take up his position as George Bush's VP. The war in Afghanistan was fundamental to US economic interests securing control over oil and gas in the nearby Caspian Sea, shipped via the Tapi pipeline, from Turkmenistan, through Afghanistan and Pakistan, and into India. The Department of Homeland Security in the Patriot Act, signed into law by President George W. Bush in the aftermath of 9/11, merely expanded the government's authority to increase surveillance of its citizens, and allowed for the indefinite detention of people deemed to be suspected of committing or conspiring to commit terror offenses. In a flagrant conflict of interest, the war on terror has been extremely lucrative for federal judge turned DHS Secretary Michael Chertoff, whose lobbying company Chertoff Group represented manufacturers of the full-body scanners that were subsequently rolled out in airports across the nation. Al-Qaeda evolved from the Mujahideen, the Islamist rebel group which was created, funded, and armed by the United States Central Intelligence Agency during Operation Cyclone in the late 1970s, as allies of the US in the Cold War against the USSR. The Western-backed terrorist organization is also supported by Britain's MI6. Osama bin Laden is purported to have had ties with the CIA, with official documents appearing to confirm that he was indeed an operative of the agency, with the code name Tim Osman, Prior to 9/11, the Taliban banned the cultivation of opium, reducing production by over 90% and vowing to eradicate the remainder. Following the invasion by the US military, and then the British Armed Forces, and the subsequent re-establishment of production in the fertile Helmand province, Afghanistan became the producer of approximately 90% of the world's opium, a level that remains to this day. The invasion of Iraq and overthrow of Saddam Hussein was precipitated by his decision to convert all Iraqi oil transactions to euros, dumping the dollar, which he considered to be the currency of the enemy, which would have crippled the dollar and been a devastating blow to the US economy. Taking these points into consideration, if 20 years on from 9/11, you still buy the official narrative and believe in the threat of ISIS or Al-Qaeda, with the greatest of respect, it's time to wake up and smell the bullshit. Happy anniversary, and God bless America.
Was bad.
I agree with that.
God, I can't believe how easy this is.
Mrs. Griffin, what are your plans for cleaning up our environment?
9/11.
Mrs. Griffin, what about our traffic problem?
9/11.